The GDR was a dictatorship. Hundreds of thousands of people were actively spied on or oppressed. Many put their lives at risk while trying to flee to the West. There are many reasons why this state never should be glorified. But many people led a happy life in the GDR. And there were a number of good things as well in the country. And that's what this video is about. Every country has its good points and bad points. The German Democratic Republic was no exception. The positive sides of the GDR were often consequences of the country's particular circumstances. But even if the positive aspects of life in the GDR were often inextricably linked to some of its negative aspects, they are still worthy of mention, because these positives contributed to people leading happy lives there. So let's have a look to some of the positive aspects of the German Democratic Republic. Women at work. When it comes to gender equality, the GDR was far ahead of its Western neighbors. In 1950, 49% of the women went to work. In 1989, it was 91%, making it among the world's leading countries in this respect. Women could decide for themselves whether they would work. In West Germany, for example, as late as 1977, women had to ask their husband for permission, and women could only seek a job as long as they didn't neglect their domestic responsibilities. Quite a difference. In the GDR, women also got jobs in technical professions or skilled trades like crane operators, welders, electrical engineers and technical draftsmen. Daycare for children. In order to have as many women as possible in the workforce, childcare was well organized. Parents didn't have to worry about what to do with their children, because the state guaranteed sufficient nursery places. Nursery schools and day nurseries opened early in the morning and stayed open until the parents picked up their children, to make sure the mothers were able to do their full shift. Education. Apart from the pervasive state influence and the dubious quality of foreign language teaching, the GDR school system was of good quality. The mainstream school, Allgemeinbildende Schule, was a better communicator of knowledge. Students leaving school after 10 or 12 years of education had a broader general knowledge than those of today. Also, practical application played a big part in the secondary schools, the Polytechnische Oberschulen. There were specialist schools for gifted children in maths, science and languages. Also, education was free, including higher education. I plan to make a separate video about the GDR educational system to go into a bit more detail. Summer camps. Every year, many children between 8 and 15 years old would go to summer camps. Parents paid no more than 20 marks for 2 to 3 weeks in a so-called Ferienlager. The camp locations belong to the parents' employers or state organizations. For children, summer camp was a big adventure. There were a lot of sports and games, but also film shows, disco evenings, bonfires, night hikes and much more. The thought behind these camps was to educate the children in communist ideals, and they had to attend a daily flag ceremony, the Fahnenappell, a gathering to honor the flag of the East German Youth Organization, and sing the associated songs. But this was the part that least impressed most children. Many still remember their summer camps as their best memories of the GDR. To them, the adventures they had there were unforgettable experiences. The cost of living. Rents were incredibly low in the GDR. The basic rent, not counting water, electricity and heating, which in Germany is known as cold rent, Kaltmiete, was around 1 GDR mark per square meter. This was of course far from enough to cover the costs, which were estimated at 2 marks per square meter. The state, which had decided to freeze the rent prices at the level of 1936, needed to spend about 4.5 billion marks each year to close this gap. In addition, the cost of heating and hot water were highly subsidized, costing the state another 4.5 billion marks. But it meant extremely low prices for the East German residents. Healthcare. The GDR provided universal healthcare, ensuring access to medical services for all, regardless of income. For GDR citizens, health insurance was part of the social insurance that also covered pensions. The health insurance covered all possible medical costs, including medicines. Children were insured as well, free of charge. Medical facilities were plentiful throughout the country, even in rural areas. The GDR placed a strong emphasis on preventive medicine. Regular checkups, vaccinations and workplace health programs were integral to the system. This focus on prevention contributed to public health improvements, such as reduced rates of infectious diseases. Social cohesion. Because the GDR was an economy of scarcity, people were more dependent on each other, and this resulted in a much more social solidarity compared to today. I've read some books with stories by former GDR citizens recalling how life was at the time. People relied on each other. For example, when building a home, you needed contacts to get your construction material, and you needed your contacts to get the material delivered to the building site. When there was any big job to do, for example in your apartment block, you just did it together. But also, there were smaller things like knowing someone who had a record player so that you could play the latest Beatles single that your West German uncle smuggled into the country. The country had strong social cohesion. So not everything in East Germany was bad, and it was possible to live a happy life in the GDR, even if you didn't support the regime. If you kept a low profile and accepted the country as it was, you were able to enjoy life, which many people did. Of course, I've only talked about a small number of positive things about the GDR. If you have something to add or you want to share some of your personal memories, feel free to write it in the comment section below, and maybe I'll make a second video about this topic. Thanks for watching and hope to see you in the next one.